Guys, there have been some crazy developments happening in the news cycle over the last several days when it comes to Israel and Iran. The nation of Israel, the people of Israel, are bracing themselves for a possible full-scale attack from Iran directly. We're going to break down this entire sequence of events here on the show today. I'm Ben, and you're watching the Israel Guys. We normally roll an intro right here, but due to the seriousness of what's going on, I'm not going to subject you to that. I'd like to just go ahead and dive right into the sequence of events. Earlier this week, as you may have seen in the news, Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus. Top officials from the Iranian military had arrived in Damascus at the embassy, more than likely to meet with their proxy forces. This is something that they do regularly. They come to Syria and they secretly meet with commanders in Hezbollah and Hamas and Iranian forces inside of Syria to direct the war, because this is an Iranian war that they're fighting with Israel through their proxies. They're in the Middle East. And they come to Israel regularly to direct the war. Israel received intelligence that they were there at the embassy and ordered a strike, more than likely, on the embassy. That killed 7 Iranians, including 3 top commanders in the Iranian military. I say probably because Israel hasn't publicly acknowledged. I don't think that the strike was them, although it's fairly understood that it had to have been them. In response on Wednesday, the Iranian president Ibrahim Raisi said that Israel would pay a heavy price for the bombing. And it seems like Israel is taking them seriously on that quote. Yesterday, the IDF announced that they would be halting leave for combat units, the combat units that are drawn up right now for the Gaza and Hezbollah war, have a regular rotation of leave, and they're halting that leave for now, meaning they're wanting to keep as many combat troops on the front as possible and combat alertness. In a statement also yesterday, the IDF's military intelligence directorate, Aron Alevi, warned Israel is facing complex days ahead, and he also said that he's not convinced that Israel's worst days are behind them in regards to this war. This was also followed by Netanyahu issuing a public statement saying that those who harm us or plan to harm us, we will harm. Also, it's reported that Israeli embassies across the world have been placed on high alert. Some ambassadors have been requested not to arrive at public events, and it's also rumored that some embassies around the world, Israeli embassies, have been evacuated, although that report has not been entirely verified. There's also reports circulating through the media that has not been verified either, but it is on a number of networks, that the CIA warned Israel yesterday that the country is facing a full-scale attack from Iran within 48 hours. That was yesterday, so that would be 24 hours from today. The report goes on to say that Iran is planning a combined attack with a rain of drones and missiles fired from bases at strategic locations. We're talking about ballistic missiles, maybe from Iran, from other military bases that they have closer to Israel, from Syria, maybe Hezbollah, from Lebanon. Also yesterday, Iran held a massive prayer service for some of the commanders that were killed in the Israeli airstrike, where they had representatives from the entire spectrum of the Iranian military, and also political leadership. And notably, members in the media were noticing that one of the major official that was missing, that should have been at that ceremony, was the commander of the Iranian military's air wing, their Airforce, which is also causing a lot of speculation as to why he would not be there. It looks like also the IDF is now calling up additional reserves to bolster its air defense, mainly Air Force reserves. And also, there have been spotted hundreds of trucks deploying ballistic missiles to Eilat. IDF ballistic missiles, hundreds of them down to Eilat, down south, as a precautionary measure in case they do get into this full-scale shooting match with Iran. The IDF is trying to avoid panic in Israel because nothing is certain. Nothing is certain with this possible war or anything in the Middle East. They're saying that there's no change to instructions for civilians, but they will alert if any changes occur. And they also, warned Israelis from running on the banks and that kind of thing, not causing any kind of domestic chaos inside of Israel, because that doesn't ever help anything. This Friday, today, is the last day of Ramadan in Islam. And it also, as far as I'm aware, is Jerusalem Day, Al-Quds Day in Iran. And so today we've been seeing large-scale, thousands and thousands of Iranians on the street for protesting for Jerusalem, for the taking back of Jerusalem, for Islam. Hundreds of thousands, I think like 120,000 is what they said, Muslims on the Temple Mount right now inside of Israel, praying, quote, praying. So this is a tense situation. It's a very tense situation. We need to be praying for the nation of Israel right now. Over the next 24 hours, over the next 48 hours, we really have no idea what might happen. In a minute, I'm going to break down what could happen if Israel and Iran went to a full-scale shooting match, what that might look like. But first, have you ever found yourself trying to understand the times that we're living through? It feels like every day brings a new challenge, making us question where we're headed. But amidst all of this, one thing remains constant: the timeless wisdom of the scriptures. That's where the Israel Bible comes into play. It's not just any Bible. It's a guiding light through these turbulent times. The Bible is more than mere words. It's a pathway to understanding and living those words. As we witness the world collapse around us, it's clear that delving deeper into our faith and biblical teachings is more relevant than ever. The Israel Bible and its unique tools for learning the Hebrew alphabet through immersive reading experiences connects us directly to the source of those teachings. Imagine reading the scriptures in its original language and understanding each word as it was revealed to God by Moses himself. In moments when it seems the world is turning on itself, there's a profound comfort in turning to the Bible and God's language. It's a way to deepen our faith and understanding, seeing beyond the chaos to the premises that will soon be fulfilled. This isn't just about reading. The Israel Bible is about experiencing, understanding, and finding solace in the divine words that have shaped our faith. Join us on this journey of faith, understanding, and discovery with the Israel Bible at your side. Click the link in the description below to get yours now. If a direct war between Israel and Iran happened, and I say if because nothing is ever certain, even though there's a lot of indications that Israel could be headed to war with Iran directly, it doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. God may protect the state of Israel from entering into this catastrophic situation. Iran may see Israel's high state of alertness and even if high state of preparedness, and even if they were planning on a full-scale attack, throttle it back, chicken out, throttle it back to something more manageable, something to make a statement without endangering their own country to such an extent. Anything could happen. We've seen lots of indications before between countries in the Middle East and outside of the Middle East that heat up to severe state of tension. Everyone expects a war, and then it doesn't happen. So it's very possible. But if a direct war between Israel and Iran happened, it would more than likely not involve ground troops and armor from Iran. Iran is two nations away from Israel, several hundred miles. If they wanted to move ground troops into Israel, it would have to be through Iraq and probably Syria or Jordan, but more than likely Syria, which would be a massive undertaking. And then moving ground troops into Israel, would have to happen probably through the Golan Heights, and you get bottlenecked in the mountains there. And then you basically, even though Iran is a massive country, has a massive manpower count when it comes to their military. When you're funneled into a smaller area, you're basically forced to fight at the size that Israel's military is, meaning you lose, advantage of size. Israel's military is very seasoned at this point, and a lot of combat troops are very seasoned, so they would not fare well in a ground invasion. But what very well could happen, and which is much more serious for the nation of Israel, is Iran could launch a full-scale air attack. We're talking about possibly thousands of ballistic missiles from Iran, hundreds of thousands of short-range missiles from Hezbollah, and also possibly from Syria, whatever arsenal Hamas has left, all launched to Israel at the same time, combined with Airforce attacks from Iranian warplanes. Even though Israel does have a very effective Iron Dome that has 85 to 90% success rate in shooting short-range missiles out of the air, Also fairly effective, but largely untested Arrow 3 system, capable of protecting Israel against ballistic missiles. Ballistic missiles are notoriously difficult to defend against, and Israel doesn't have a lot of testing with the Arrow 3 for obvious reasons, because they haven't had to defend against large amounts of ballistic missiles. It seems like it works well, but like I said, ballistic missiles are very difficult to hit out of the air because of the speed that they're traveling at. And, we don't know the success rate that Israel would have in a full-scale, shooting match in defending against ballistic missiles. Also, if Iran fired their full arsenal and the full arsenal of their proxies at Israel all at the same time, it's such a small country, their air defenses would be overwhelmed very quickly, and we could be talking about large amounts of civilian casualties inside of Israel, large amounts of military casualties inside of Israel. Israel would hit back very, very hard against Iran, of course, but the difference that we're talking about, and the advantage that Iran would have over Israel, is just land mass. Population mass inside of Iran is much, much larger, meaning they could absorb much more damage before they were crippled than the state of Israel. If they both launch their full arsenals at each other at the same time, Iran could absorb much more damage than the state of Israel before they would be forced to capitulate. So that's the danger of what could happen. Thankfully, Israel is a nuclear country. They do have nuclear weapons. It seems like they have nuclear weapons. I don't think they've ever publicly admitted it, but all indications point that way. Also, a lot of indications point to Israel has heavily invested in tactical nukes, smaller nuclear weapons that could be used against, used much more effectively in a military operation. If Israel was overwhelmed by Iran in a shooting match, an air shooting match, they could and would turn to nuclear defense against Iran, and would not end well for Iran. As far as we know, Iran does not have nuclear weapons, thank God, due to Israel's very strong intervention in keeping them from obtaining nuclear weapons for such a time as this, precisely. So even though Israel would win if it came to a full-scale shooting match with Iran, I have every confidence with that, because Israel has a great God, and the God of Israel has also helped them become equipped with a very strong military. If it came to a full-scale shooting match with Iran, it seems like there would be a lot of civilian casualties, and that would be an awful, awful, terrible situation, which is why we very much must pray for the nation of Israel right now, over the next 24 hours especially. Pray for God to spare them from this situation, and pray for wisdom for the leaders inside of Israel right now, for the military leaders and political leaders, as they make tough decisions on how to defend the state of Israel. Because realistically, if they feel confident that Iran's going to head towards a full-scale shooting match with Israel, if they feel confident that that's going to happen, what Israel must do is preemptively strike Iran like they did to Egypt in the Six-Day War. They can't allow Iran to launch 1,000 ballistic missiles at Israel before they retaliate. If Israel feels confident that Iran attack is imminent, they must preempt and take out a lot of Iran's Air Force capability before Iran is able to inflict damage on Israel. But if they do that, they're risking being wrong, one, about if Iran's going to attack, and also being the responsibility for the war in the international community would fall on them, and they would take the blame for the war, because Israel always does. We saw this in the Six-Day War. Israel preemptively struck Egypt and saved themselves from an awful situation by destroying Egypt's Air Force on the ground, but they took the blame for the war in the international community during and afterwards. So if it comes to the survival of the state of Israel, they might have to do that. It might just be what they have to do. But it's an awful decision to have to make. No one wants to be in that position to have to make. So please, please, please pray for Israel's leaders. Contact your representatives today and ask them to stand unequivocally with the nation and state of Israel right now to send whatever is needed to the state of Israel for their defense, in terms of support and also physical aid as well. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for future updates on the nation. of Israel. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. As always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back nearly every day, Monday through Friday, with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.